health coach with Greenleaf Wellness in Central Illinois, and I am with
Shauna
Sean.
Cordell, certified health coach and with Inspire Wellness for You. So today we are going to talk about inflammation in the body, which is a pretty cool thing to just learn extra information about. We like to come together, Jen and I, and co-host this podcast to share information with you and free tips and knowledge, just so we can hope for everybody to have improved health, all together. So here we go.
So, how have you been?
I'm great. Sorry, I had to look and make sure I was recording. I'm good, but it took us a second because this is only our second, video podcast. And so we're still trying to get in the hang of, how we do this with Zoom, but we're getting there. So I'm good and I'm excited.
Yes, practice makes perfect.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I was a little excited to do this topic because we had Tracy Van Meter Ricker on our Awaken page requested inflammation in the body, how it affects the body. So it was kind of cool to have someone that's listening and supporting us come up with a topic for us. So I was really excited about that. And so having inflammation myself 5 weeks after surgery for my foot, I can kind of relate to some of the information, extra research and stuff. So it was just kind of cool to be like, oh yeah. But it goes beyond just like an injury of your foot or your hand or having surgery. So it really goes into the whole system, with our cells and just the body in itself. And so intestinal issues and, inflammation based off certain foods. So it's another thing that people probably don't think about is it's not just sugar. Everyone's so focused in on how it's sugar, 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 sugar. Well, sugar does play a huge part in that, but it's also the environment, mental stress, physical stress, emotional stress, which we're going to go into that as well. And a lot falls into gut health, which we're going to talk about that. And then making sure you have the proper nutrients from your supplements and certain foods that also aid into the help of fighting inflammation. So what is inflammation? That's a big question, right? So it happens when the immune system fights against something going against the body. So it kind of puts you in that fight and flight syndrome, and it just really makes your body fight more. So like for me, I've noticed like the redness, the swelling, the numbness in my foot, and a little concerning about that, but the doctor's like, it's okay. But it's not only that, but it can affect like the whole systems, like diabetes, of too much inflammation, heart conditions and stuff like that. So it also it causes the cells to react as well, which is kind of cool. So in certain diseases, the immune system fights against its own cells. So we're going to go into that a little bit, which can cause harmful inflammation like rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis, which is a disease in the skin.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned harmful inflammation, because inflammation is a normal functioning part of the body. It's a good thing, but what do we all know about too much of a good thing? It ain't so good anymore. So that's where, really chronic inflammation plays a role, and symptoms throughout the whole body, really start to just wreak havoc on the body. And that's when inflammation's a problem. And so I'm really glad that you mentioned, it can be harmful, but I also want everyone to know it's generally a good thing. Like you said, that's our body's mechanism for an injury. You have a foot issue right now. So your body's focusing on the care and healing of that foot. It's just like if we get a scratch and it turns red around, that's our body's way of putting soldiers to that specific area. That's the most important key here, I think, is a specified area rather than the system being botched up. And then it's just, chaos internally, it's just going to make a mess of the body. So.
And I've been really amazed just watching my foot heal every week and taking pictures of the progress. It's like really disgusting to like, oh my gosh. And then you wonder why you're so tired or why your body feels more hot. And it's because you're fighting to heal, which is really awesome. But when you put the foreign invaders from food in there, like the consumption of sugars and the carbs and stuff like that, and gluten, which too much of that goes into, leaky gut and SIBO and stuff. So it's not just surgeries and stuff like that. It's a major impact on how we eat, and overconsumption is not good.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, too much of a good thing is wrong.
Right. And really,
So,
inflammation is when we're in overload. You know, regular inflammation, it's like we talked about attacking the specified area. But with what we're going to go into today with stress and foods and nutrients in the gut and, you know, sleep and hormones, it's when the inflammation is on overload. So it's an overdrive. The soldiers are, you know, way too much everywhere. And this is what causes the chaos.
right. So, like overconsumption, and we talk about diabetes because too much sugar, insulin resistance goes into diabetes. Diabetes then goes into heart disease. So those kind of play together. You got allergies. So if you have food allergies and you're not aware of that, it can cause inflammation as well. And imbalanced microbiome, which is the gut. And it's just, to me, it was really interesting to realize that 70% of immune cells reside in the intestines, and how an excessive amount of sugar and the wrong foods play into the intestinal tract, and the immune cells gather around it and they ignore the bad bacteria or the good bacteria, creating bad. And so that kind of overrides. The chronic stress is another one, rises in cortisol, which leads to belly fat, which then leads to more inflammation, so.
And what you said about the immune cells. So the chemical, you know, in inflammation, basically the white blood cells increase. Well, chemical is actually released from the white blood cells, which is a protein, and it acts as like an inflammatory mediator. So that's when your pathways activating, your cells are communicating, and everyone knows what to do. But when it's an overload and overdrive, it's like a traffic jam, and there's a buildup, and then communication is lost, there's interference. And, you know, that's where, for example, just in the joint area, if, you know, the inflammation is starting there and the white blood cells are releasing that chemical, and then there's too much of it, it's a traffic jam. You get the joint pain, the redness, the swelling, inflammation. Not only that, that's when you get, you know, rheumatoid arthritis or regular arthritis. And something I know we've been talking about some of the topics that we're going to discuss today, stress, food, etc. But I don't know if you knew this, Jen. It's so cool. So itis is inflammation, but all of the autoimmune disorders caused by inflammation. So, for example, we've got dermatitis, bronchitis, colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, pancreatitis, tonsillitis, tendinitis. I mean, there's like probably 100 different diseases ending in itis that you can get that are autoimmune disorders, but they're also started from inflammation, chronic inflammation that we're talking about with these traffic jams. So I just think that's, you know, kind of neat to put together and tie that in.
Mm-hmm. A
Isn't
lot of
that
people
crazy?
aren't aware too that a lot of the medications can cause inflammation.
Of
So like
course.
you look at statins, well, they create more sugar in the bloodstream. So then you're going to get the insulin resistance to diabetes. So that's, inflammation there. And so it stops the liver from producing the cholesterol and turns it into sugar. So over excessive amounts of statins can raise blood sugar, which is going to cause inflammation in the body. So it's really important to understand what your ailments are and what your medications do and what they're for. And,
Let's explore the area of sugar. You know, let's define that topic a little bit more linked to inflammation. Are you ready for that?
go ahead.
Okay. Well, basically, the reason why we say sugar is linked to inflammation is because, like Jen just said, sugar increases your insulin. Well, what happens is that hormone response is just the same as autoimmune or inflammation. So you've got these soldiers or these molecules moving through your body. They're coming together to address the issue at hand. And when there's too much of it and it's constant and it's put in overdrive, that's what wreaks havoc with the communication signaling in the body's function. So same thing, where the sugar increases the insulin, lots of sugar, lots of insulin, that's a hormonal imbalance, and then it's going to cause inflammation because it's messing up the communication between the cells. So did you want to go a little bit more on your end? I know you had some topics you wanted to talk about regarding sugar itself.
No, I was strictly on the inflammation, but you're doing a good job of the sugar.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So, but yeah, I mean, that's why we as health coaches always want you to be aware of how your sugar consumption is. If you're excessive amounts, read the labels. It's really important to make that connection. If you're doing too much of it, know why. it's causing issues in the body and why you need to lower it and how it's going to make you feel better. You know, if you restrict sugar altogether, like the keto does, great. Like the keto is designed for PCOS, it's designed for people with epilepsy and stuff like that. So eliminating the sugar is good in the aspect of if you have those certain ailments, you want to get rid of it. But to be so restrictive of the body, if you don't have the certain ailments, in the long run, yeah, you're probably going to start craving it again. And once you give into that, you better be careful because you're going to bring back everything you just worked so hard to get rid of, you know. But sugar can be your friend if it's the proper healthy sugars, but you don't want the excessive bad sugars, which is the junk foods and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but that's why we go into all that with our clients.
Yeah, and the pro-inflammatory molecules, the cytochines are, you know, what we're talking about that shows up and builds up in those areas. And I mean, sugar, we've got podcasts. I think our first two podcasts were Sugar Talk 1 and Sugar Talk 2. Those are on our Facebook page and YouTube. So feel free to go back and listen to those because they do talk. We associate inflammation, of course, and we just go more into detail with sugar. You know, but it's so important. I mean, stress does the same thing. The autoimmune response does the same thing. So it's quite complex, but we're just sharing with you on a very basic level. You know, we all hear about inflammation. We know it's bad. We know, you know, it can cause disease. But a lot of us deal with inflammation. I've dealt with it, and it's no fun. I mean, fatigue, you feel horrible, bloating. I mean, it just throws up so many functions in the bodies. I mean, before you know it, you've got 20, 30 different things going on that you've got to address almost individually to balance out and get the body back on the right track and reduce that inflammation. But the best part about that is then I think you feel more confident in your health. You know that you're on the path to having more optimal health, and it gives you that, you know, kind of peace of mind that you're in the right direction and you're getting healthier day by day. And that's my favorite. I love that, right?
Yeah. More energy, no naps, you know, you're clear headed, you're not foggy anymore. So it's just something to watch for. You know, it's not just sugar, but like you said, it's just everything combined. You know, if you got stress, you're going to go to the comfort foods, which is usually a carb and a sugar. So, you know, just be careful.
Yeah, increasing those pro-inflammatory, you know, by greater numbers. So, well, you know, something interesting, we're going to obviously share tips on anti-inflammatory diet and stuff like that for reducing your inflammation. But a lot of, you know, we know eat more cruciferous vegetables, eat vegetables. Why? Because they're healthy. Well, why else? You know, no one really gets past that point. So vegetables have phytonutrients in them, and phytonutrients are actually plant hormones, which have a hormonal balancing effect on the body. So I thought that was so neat because, you know, we've heard phytonutrients are so good for you, but maybe a lot of us didn't know, you know, what exactly are they and why are they good for us? So the fact that the plant hormones have a balancing effect on our hormones. So when our cortisol's thrown out, our thyroid's thrown out, we're having autoimmune issues from chronic inflammation, that balancing effect can start where the pathways are communicating again and things are making sense and signaling is, you know, happening. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, I always say make the produce your best friend.
Seriously.
Because all the anti-inflammatory foods are in the produce, you know, your white onions, your celeries, your radishes and stuff like that. And not only that, but, you know, metabolism foods, energy foods, everything's right there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to give up your meat to eat that way. You can still give your meat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just say
Grass fed.
yeah, just have more vegetables than meat. But I mean, you can't go wrong in the produce and be more creative, you know? So
You know, it's a neat little tip. I've heard this before with spiritual ways, but so let's talk about that. Make produce your best friend. Put produce in your phone as a contact. So when you're calling and you're looking up peas, you're going to see produce. When you're texting, you're going to see produce, you know, and it's a really good way in our modern world to be reminded that, you know, maybe you need to associate a little bit more with produce, hang out a little bit more with produce. And trust me, I mean, it's better than a bell going off on your phone at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. Produce. It's just a really neat constant reminder. And, you know, you're at the grocery store and So hopefully that'll help you. Organic, of course, is best.
Yes, cleaner. But yeah, you know, back to a little bit of the excess proteins and not proteins, sugars and carbs. You know, it too much of it, too much of the glucose and stuff like that, oxidative stress and inflammation. You know, you don't want, and then the bad bacteria and the toxins to go in the bloodstream because that's where a lot of it stems from, and
Yeah.
that's again where you get leaky gut and SIBO.
Mm.
So you know, you want to talk about gut inflammation and gut health. That's why we recommend fermented foods, probiotics, because you want to stay balanced in the gut, and keep the good guys fighting, keep the bad guys out. And that's why I always tell my clients, you know, rotate what you buy. You never want to eat the same thing over and over and over and over. If you're taking a probiotic strain of one source of bacteria and you run out, switch it over to a new strand because you want your
Diversity.
body. Yes, exactly. And, you know, being that we're biome ambassadors for gut health, it's really important to switch it up. And so they're getting it, you know, but it takes time to develop that relationship with how you shop and what you eat and how you fix food. So they get it. And
Yeah.
it's just amazing. You become more regular with your bowel movements. You don't have the bloating. Your stomach will go down.
You'll
You might
lose
have,
weight
you,
because the inflammation is, overproduction of, certain bacteria strands, and it is no fun. It's terrible.
yeah.
It's
And
not about weight loss and exercising and eating, what you think is healthy. Some guidance and accountability is good because too much exercise isn't good. Not enough rest isn't good. I don't want to scare anybody, but it's really important. Things are so much more important than we realize. Just as simple as balance,
Mhm.
diversity. And you mentioned leaky gut. It's like we hear it so much in the busy modern society. Leaky gut, SIBO, bacteria overgrowth. At first it's like, wow, those are really bad things. I don't want to get them. And then it becomes such a constant thing in our ear. We hear about it all the time. I think people start to, it loses face value. People start to think, oh, either everybody has it or it's not that big of a deal or it's a fad or there's no such thing. But really, truly, and trust me, I know when you look at these, leaky gut, putting toxins into your bloodstream, that's horrible. It's horrific. It's so, so bad. So we start to get kind of comfortable like, oh, I got this or I got that. But really, it's just so important. I mean, for longevity, to pay attention to reducing it and reversing as much as possible so that way you can be on that optimal health path is so important. And it plays a role in your mind, your body, your soul, your relationships, your libido, your excitement for life. And so, that's why we're here to share this information with everybody.
Well, it's also important to understand too that the high estrogen foods can
Mm-hmm.
also make you feel kind of icky and
Mm-hmm.
inflamed and stuff like that. So it's bringing that awareness on your labels. Look for the estrogen foods, the oils and stuff too. So,
Well, what's really neat? I was talking about the plant hormones and the phytonutrients. They actually have a binding effect to old estrogen. So when you're having a lot of vegetables, they're reducing, that excess estrogen and that old estrogen. It's cleaning out and getting out of your body. And so that's another way that it increases, improvement on the hormonal balance. So I think that's pretty cool too. It's a good way to just rid it.
yeah. So, making sure you have enough fiber because the fiber is going to help take that with it and your inflammation will go down with that too. So it's just amazing how when you eat right, the inflammation goes away, but then you have more detoxification. Your body just cleanses itself, and it's really cool. You hear about all these extra, oh, this cleanse or do that cleanse or do that cleanse, and I'm one that thinks the body is just naturally going to detox for you, and what's foreign in there will come out if you eat properly and have a lot of movement, and just taking care of yourself and having that balance, getting the sleep so your stress levels can come down, learning how to breathe properly so your stress levels come down, so you don't have all those nasty cravings for the high sugar foods,
Yeah.
So it all plays together.
And then you're reducing the stress on the body. So let's talk about that for a little bit. We kind of mentioned sugar and inflammation, what inflammation is, how it affects the body. But stress increases cortisol. Excessive caffeine increases cortisol. Just like the inflammatory response is going to react and try to fight, well, cortisol, as we all know, your fight or flight response hormone, we hear that all the time. But then again, that's why I say some things maybe lose face value, because really when your body's in that constant stress, your cells aren't communicating. Your body's not functioning the way it's supposed to. It's increasing inflammation, which is itis, which then you get those diseases. I know I already said this, but so it's powerful, and it's so important to try to reduce your stress. And I have a friend, we were talking about this a while ago. So, think about a long time ago, a man and a woman relationship, they're married. What'd they do? It took the wife like all day long to make a meal and do the laundry. It took all day, right? And now in our society, it's like you may have driven out of town and back in a day for an appointment. You cooked 3 meals. You did some meal prepping. You took care of your kids. You took care of your spouse. You took care of your work. You cleaned. It's like you took care of the animals. Maybe you dealt with a problem with your mom or your cousin or something because, the internet, and then you got Facebook and Instagram, and you're posting and this and that. So we get so much done in a day. And really, again, stress management, reduce your stress. We know that, right? We all know, oh yeah, take a bath, listen to some soft music, journal. But how many of us actually do it? I know it's hard. I'm working on that. I'm trying to make that now a number one priority. And I'm in the works of creating that really, really healthy, solid, lasting habit, because, right? It's hard. It's different now with busy worlds and lives, but, to reduce inflammation and to do the best you can to prevent those, common diseases that, really they're in our control a little bit. So if we just give ourselves that extra TLC and really, truly, right, meditate, breathe, like you said,
Prayer, journal, reevaluate where you're working if it's work stress. Who are you hanging out with that's got a negative personality that kind of weighs on you all the time, and maybe not associate so much with them all the time, but
right.
find a healthy balance. And how is your sleep schedule? What time do you get up in the morning? What's the first thing you do? You're on your social media. They say that the first few seconds of waking up determines how your day will go. You're either going to go to social media, and now you put it first before everything on your to-do list. So now you're going to procrastinate and get slower at getting things done. Or you're going to be one of those that makes your bed and you're focused on the day and you're already ahead of and you want to get up early and be more productive. That sets your whole tone for the whole entire day. So if you do that, eliminate the stressors first thing in the morning, deal with them later. Don't get on email right away in the mornings. Put it off until you get to work. Like my rule for my business is I will not be in the office until 9 a.m. and I probably won't take my first phone call until after that. So it's like if someone were to call me, an email, whatever, it's like I'm not checking it until I get into work. Even though I work from home, I won't be there till 9, so, and then
so important to have a set schedule you have to be organized and not procrastinate and have some strict discipline. That's for sure.
Because the kids get home at 3 and they want my attention. And then before I know it, I'm making dinner and, tending to them still in the evenings, and the husband comes home and it's like attention to them. So if I'm working, I can't devote my time there. Then I become stressed because now my mindset is work's more important right now. This is going to have to wait for the kids. And that's so backwards. So if you can reevaluate your thinking and how you apply it daily, sets the whole tone of, your whole stress levels throughout the whole entire day. So what you do first thing in the morning affects your whole day if you want to be stressed or not. But, it's really taking that dive into where you're at and who you're with and all the environmental, which is why we do Circle of Life. We want to know what's your home environment like. What is your work career and your creativity and your home environment like for cooking? And we got a whole list of things that we go through, but stress is huge. And it's not just what you eat, it's what you do in the primary foods. So,
well, chronic stress isn't going to allow cortisol to stop reacting. It's supposed to come and go and be there when we need it, but chronic stress, it's just not going to allow that signaling. So It's just important, the stress management with the chronic inflammation. And we've talked about, as we said, sugar, and we talked about stress and a little bit of what you can eat and do to reduce inflammation. But what I'd like you to do is, after today's replay of this podcast, think to yourself what you could focus on just to reduce stress in your daily living, in your environment. One thing. And believe it or not, I want you to focus on it for 30 days. Because if you don't, you're going to be on to the next thing. You're going to want a diet and a detox and a this and a that, and you're just going to go in circles. So for everybody, I mean, unless, meditating is, what you do all day long and you guide people in meditation because that's your work, everybody can leave today with figuring out one thing they can do, whether it's reducing your sugar, reducing your stress, increasing your vegetables. We gave a lot of tips, and we've got a few more things to share, but do that with yourself. Self-reflect, take one thing from today's podcast, give yourself the challenge, focus on it, because that's the only way, really to make it a priority, is to just work on it every day, to have it in your mind every day, to keep, making sure that happens. And you owe it to yourself. You do deserve it. So
A lot of my clients right now are not sleeping very well. And I think it's because of the high demands just in the work and home environment. And it's do your breathing before you go to sleep. Do some stretching before you go to sleep. The breathing I'm huge on, and they're getting it. And so some of them are getting the breathing apps and laying in bed at night. And, but I find myself waking up 4 or 5 in the morning wide awake. And that's my time to really zone in on, okay, prayer time. Who can I pray for right now? And then I go back to sleep, but I sleep better, and when you get in those little, I can't sleep modes, just question, why am I not sleeping? Who do I need to pray for? What am I up for? And usually God has a reason for you to be up. That's just how I view it. It's my hour of prayer, so got that on my friends list. But it's just really important to zone in on, like you said, and just see what you can do. And that's what we're here to help too.
well, and we've all heard it time and time again, but are any of us focusing on it? Being off your devices, 60 to 90 minutes before bed, at least 30 minutes before bed. Make sure your room's dark. Again, we've got a podcast already on sleep and how to improve your sleep with so many tips there, because the whole podcast is about that one thing. But it's important, it's so easy to check that email or your phone dings. It's really recommended to not even bring your phone in your room, but I use it as my alarm clock, so I have it in there. But, those lights, the blue lights, they actually have glasses. I saw some on Amazon for $15. I forget what it is, what it's called, but it helps reflect that blue light. So they just look like normal eyeglasses, and you're emitting less of that blue light. So I think it's pretty neat. I might try some.
Sounds cool. We just put a thing on our computer system on the internet Wi-Fi that the kids cannot do anything past a certain time at night on their computers or little devices. And it's kind of cool. It's like, you're supposed to be sleeping anyway. So
is it Disney Circle?
I'm not sure what my husband put on there. He's the IT guy. So I just kind of know that a certain time point, and I'm like, you didn't stop mine, did you? And he's like, no, just the kids.
Right.
I'm in bed by 8:30. So relaxing before I go to sleep. So.
Well, and we will post the anti-inflammatory diet link under this podcast. It's, anti-inflammatory promoting foods, antioxidants, all of your good stuff, not your rancid, toxic stuff. So those are helpful.
Well, I'm not really for diets, but a really good one out there that's not going to be one to eliminate a lot of the foods is going to be your Mediterranean. They found
way of eating rather than diet. Yeah.
Like make it a lifestyle, Mediterranean foods and stuff like that. And they have really good dishes. And I just view that since inflammation stems from the gut, that everything you eat, everything you do, that's where all the stress is held in your gut too. If you can eat healthy, follow the Mediterranean, and then over time, maybe a couple months, you'll start seeing a difference.
Yep.
The antioxidants, you're going to get your anti-inflammatory. So it's a really healthy diet if you want to go on a diet. Exactly. And then there are supplements too. So you could do curcumin, which you can find that in turmeric, ginger, and zinc. So those are some good ones too.
And vitamin D. I mean, you can look it up yourself. There's countless research articles on the effects of vitamin D deficiency with poor gut, with poor hormones, with inflammation, with rheumatoid arthritis, with so many aspects, you know. And then those sugars, those vegetable oils, because they're genetically modified soybean oil, they're very high in omega-6. The gluten mainly, I don't know if a lot of people know this, and it kind of stinks too that this is happening. You know, maybe some people can tolerate gluten better than others, but you know, the main thing that I want to share. So wheat isn't, you know, it doesn't have to have all that Roundup ready. But what happens is the law is that at the time of harvest, the wheat is soaked in Roundup. It has to be at the end, at the harvest, before it goes out to the market. So in organic, you're not necessarily in organic standards, the wheat doesn't get that Roundup at the end. However, if you look at the studies, there's still quite a bit, actually more than I expected, of traces of the Roundup in the wheat. You know, I mean, things are airborne, farms are close together. And so, you know, gluten is wheat, and it just wreaks havoc on your body because it's foreign particles and your body's trying to fight it. And basically, you know, the increased inflammation is increased immune system. So try to, you know, immunity issues, because it's your immune system trying to fight off these foreign issues, you know, stress, cortisol, inflammation, whatever it is that's in constant. And, you know, build your immune system when you're eating these anti-inflammatory foods as well. Like you said, the turmeric, curcumin, vitamin C, all those are so good for you.
Right. And certain grains can also cause inflammation for certain people. So
Yep.
if you are one that consume a lot of grains, do elimination for a while, see how your body feels, and then put it back in. And if you have a reaction and start feeling crappy again, then you'll know why. But remember to keep your gut flora very healthy and strong and diverse, and, you know, keep you from getting Crohn's and IBS and all that other stuff. So,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
IBS is really linked with SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. So, you know, it's an inflammatory bowel disease, an IBD, and they're becoming more common because our microbiomes in our guts are getting kind of more jacked up, you know, around these 50 states over here. So,
It's that sad diet, you know?
yes, yeah. But, you know, an adult is probably listening to our podcast. I don't expect a child to listen to this podcast. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this can be affecting your children. It can be affecting your grandchildren. You know, your microbiome now is going to affect your future generations. And so, you know, it's not just middle-aged or older adults that this happens to. It can happen to, you know, young people, especially a lot of bacterias. They will come increased if you have increased antibiotics in your system. So for people who have had a lot of antibiotics in their system, then they're attracting these pathogenic bacteria that are bringing endotoxins, you know, to the body, and, you know, increased UTIs and chances for IBD and all kinds of stuff. So it's just really important to, you know, play a role on, you know, pay attention to the insides of your body. Pay attention to that stress that's affecting you, or that, you know, oh, it's just a birthday party, I'll have some cake and probably this really crappy hot dog. So, you know, how often are we doing that versus how much of a day are we focusing on reducing, eliminating, prioritizing, you know, for optimal health?
And small changes, a little bit each week, and then you'll start doing better. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is hard to, you know, put your all in one thing. You know, we want you to pay attention to your families, your work, yourselves, but pay attention to yourselves, pay attention to your families in the aspect of health. It's important. And why do we do this? Why do we share it with you? Because we want you to have these free healthy tips. I mean, you're busy, you're working. Right now you can listen to us while you're driving on the go. And, you know, you can take something from this today, and then maybe later you can take it upon yourself to, you know, look up some of our suggestions. And we want you to share it with your kids, your grandkids, your spouse. If you haven't even had children yet and you want to get pregnant, you really want to be fertile and, to be as healthy as possible, to be absorbing your nutrients, to not have these pathogenic bacterias. And so that's why we do this. That's why we share. And I'm so thankful that we had a topic request, and I hope that we gave her some helpful insight.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy.
Absolutely. So you guys have a great day. Share your feedback. Jen, am I missing anything? Did you want to say any last?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, everybody have a great day, and let us know what you learned.